Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Sue, your 2022 Oakland mayoral candidate. Last night at City Council, we had a new EMP passed by our City Council. EMP being Encampment Management Policy. That's the policy on what Oakland does and how they deal with homelessness here in Oakland, and how they deal with me in some cases. But anyway, last night a new EMP was put in place, passed unanimously by all the city council members. We had been advocating, us advocates and those of us who are also homeless and housed, we have been advocating and talking to city council members to not pass the EMP because of how harmful it is and the abusive use of power that comes with that new EMP. One of the things that the EMP does, all the progress that myself and us other advocates and other folks advocating with us, what we were able to attain over the last 2 years was last night wiped out. So everything that, all the work that we did for the past 2 years on rights, on all sorts of major issues, was rescinded last night by the City Council. And so we had gotten a commitment from Noel Gallo that he would not vote for that. We would had hoped that Nikki Fortunato Bass would have voted against it, and several other members, but no. I don't know what happened. I was not able to attend the very raucous meeting that started yesterday afternoon. The meeting started yesterday afternoon and went all the way to just short of midnight last night before the vote was actually cast and the measure passed. So anyway, I'm going to highlight some of the really harmful items of the new EMP. The new EMP pretty much makes being homeless illegal throughout 98% of all of Oakland. 98% of Oakland is now off limits to encampments. One of the restrictions is that no encampment can be any closer than 50 feet from a residential area or business. They cannot set up in those areas. So within 50 feet of the business entrance, 50 feet of a residential area, they are forbidden. Also, schools. I'm fine with this 150 feet from public schools, from any school. That's fine with me. I don't have any issues with that. But you know, that takes a lot of places out also for a lot of the homeless camps. And a lot of reasons why these homeless camps are so close to a lot of these resources or these homes, these business and schools, is because they need the resources that are close by, meaning the libraries, the stores, the grocery stores, dental, doctors, you name it. The homeless also need those services, so that's why they stay really close to those services at all times. And it's real important that they stay close by in services so that they can have them and not be in dire need or shortchanged of fulfilling their needs. So 98% of Oakland becomes illegal for homeless encampments. And how they're doing this is by labeling high impact areas and low impact areas. Where I am here, this is a low impact area because this is predominantly all industry. We have some large businesses close by, but we maintain the 50-foot distance from their entrance, and we're also not anywhere near a residential area. Closest residential area is about 2 blocks away, and it's different. We don't have a lot of services anywhere nearby, and so that makes it very difficult to get food, to get water, to get anything. And so by the passage of this document last night, this new EMP, they are now in direct violation of Martin versus Boise, a federal court case which protects us that are unhoused. And so by Martin versus Boise says that a city cannot move us unless they are going to provide us with adequate shelter. And that's been a shortfall for Oakland this entire period. They've been questioning that. They've had their city attorneys go against all the court rulings by the federal government. They've challenged everything, and unfortunately COVID stopped everything and really harmed a lot of stuff here. So things are having some issues with moving forward. So those are some of the things that we're saying you can't do this because it violates Martin versus Boise, which protects us. And so these are things that have to be addressed with the different issues that we're dealing with. So Oakland is required to provide adequate shelter, meaning a shelter bed, tiny homes, something so that that person can be off the street properly and not putting them into a worse situation, which is what quite often happens here, because Oakland says that they use a lot of these intervention agencies to help us. Well, those intervention agencies are the thieves that are stealing from you, namely BACS, Operation Dignity, and HCEB. They are stealing money from you, and a lot of it's getting tossed under the carpet. Now, we had a real big one here a little better than a year ago with BACS, and that one is still not cleared up. That one's a major one. That was a $100 million embezzlement that is still being investigated. So we're still working on that. Right now, Oakland is not offering any shelter beds because Project Room Key is a total and utter failure throughout the state of California. A lot of folks that went into Project Room Key weren't even from the street. A majority of the people that ended up in Project Room Key were from the shelters. And the reason why they were from the shelters because we had a big outbreak in COVID in the shelters, so they had to decompress. And so what ended up happening, those Project Room Key rooms, instead of going to people that are homeless, went to people that were sheltered to decompress the shelters. So the homeless people lost out on that entirely. And then there were other requirements. And just to let you folks know, Project Room Key was such a failure, but yet the state of California and a lot of other folks were saying it was so successful. I stepped down from my position that I had at a healthcare organization. I no longer am with that healthcare organization as things weren't moving in the direction that I would think that they would want to go. And these things were just routine and common things. And to me, it was a waste of my time and effort. And I saw no progress being made with the seat that I held. So I stepped down from that just last week. And that gives me more time to work on the issues here in Oakland. And so one of the biggest things that Oakland is saying about this new EMP is that they are not criminalizing people, meaning that they are not going to give anybody a citation or ticket or jail them or anything like that, which is kind of stupid to begin with, because if you're homeless, you don't have money to pay those fines anyway. And putting people in jail for simply being unhoused is wrong. And Libby knows this. but yet she continues to go with this particular model that she's put in place. Also, some of the other things that are very harmful to the folks, now there are footprint limitations to the size of your shelter, meaning that doesn't matter who you are, if you have family, if you have kids, if you have a lot of possessions that you're trying to hang on to, you are now limited to a 12 by 12 foot footprint. And the city says if you violate that, they will come take it down. They're going to tear it down because it violates the size. And so right here, I'm in jeopardy of the city tearing my shelter down right now. But because I'm in a low impact area, and it's not likely that they're going to, unless we start having the overcrowding issue, which is the next thing that's going to happen. Because with this new EMP, instead of 93 camps that are distributed throughout Oakland, they are now compressing all 93 camps into 40 sanctioned locations. 40 sanctioned locations. These locations will have the porta potties and hand washing stations. While they're helpful, that doesn't alleviate the problems that are going to come with it, because what we've experienced with Oakland in the past is that they don't care who they put in those areas that they tell them to go to, and so that creates a lot of violence. There's gangs out on the street gangs. You put, as an example, East 12th and 23rd Avenue. That was a big homeless site where over 200 people were at one point. But then we also had shootings, murders, rapes, and a lot of violence over there because the city did exactly what they're about to do again. And that's put a whole lot of dangerous street gangs all in one location, and they're going to mix them with good people. People who are not part of gangs, they're not violent, they're just trying to get by day to day. But yet, Oakland does not see that. Oakland only sees the homeless as garbage. And we're treated like garbage. Then we're told, I have wood on the side of my shelter. That's illegal. And they can take my shelter down for having a hard surface. And the thing is, that hard surface is much better at resisting violence, at fire, and people trying to harm you. But yet the city of Oakland says you can't do that, because they call this fire load. They said, well, if a fire starts in there, we can't stop it. Well, we don't care about that at this point. Right now, it's actually safer with a harder structure because we're able to put those fires out with fire extinguishers on site. I have fire extinguishers, and I've never had a fire, but we've had fires in here. And the reason why we have fires is because people get careless on occasions with a candle at night, especially with the days getting shorter now, nights getting longer. A lot of people are using candles for lighting inside their units. Very dangerous and not recommended, because we lost half of our camp a month ago due to that same issue, a candle fire. We lost half of our camp. And so, but yet the city says, well, that's okay. We don't mind candles because that's not dangerous. They don't see it dangerous, but here in the encampments, we see it as a big danger, because not one camp goes up, not two tents goes up, but a whole row of tents, because we try and break up, put fire breaks in between, but because there's such a demand for street space, for shelters, that those safety spaces go away, unfortunately. People will slip in there no matter how hard you try and get them to come out of that and reestablish those safety zones. People won't adhere to them, and that's normal. And unfortunately, unless somebody is really adamant about a fire break between their shelter, it just doesn't happen. I'm one of those folks that is very adamant about a fire break between my shelter because I don't want to lose my stuff to somebody else's negligence. And so those are things that we're having to deal with. Libby has also deemed tiny homes in Oakland illegal, and she's torn a lot down. Nita B's Housing and Dignity Village has been destroyed many times by Libby's administration since 2015 that I'm aware of, and continues to be harassed. And these are actually safer. A lot of those tiny homes have single women or a female and a child in them. And that hard surface is the only safety that those ladies or those two females have against the elements and violence. They have a door that they can lock, but Libby doesn't want locked doors. We see it all over all the city programs. There are no locked doors in the community cabins. There are no locked doors in the trailer park. There are no locked doors anywhere. And so this creates a very big problem for crime. And I get that we need to reduce the street crime because we need to actually build housing. We need housing to remove homelessness. And obviously our city council doesn't understand that. Libby doesn't understand, housing is the only answer to this. We have answers. There are answers all over this country, one of which I've been promoting. Actually, three of them I've been promoting on my Facebook site. And these are tiny homes. One set is in Detroit. We have another set in Reno, Nevada. We have San Diego with their first tiny home community. And other parts of the country have tiny home communities. Not sometimes individual houses, but groups of houses in many places. And what makes a lot of these opportunity villages unique is that they're always temporary. They're there for the need. Once the need is removed, once we stabilize housing, then those opportunity villages can go away. And that's the great part of my PATH program. I want to talk about my PATH. I've been trying to introduce this program to city members, city council members, to only get laughed at. I've been trying to reach Libby with these tiny home projects because this could change everything here in Oakland. Everything will change. We'll reduce crime by 31%. We'll get the homeless housed and affordably. We have all the means and the tools necessary to create the tiny home communities which are of the future. These are energy efficient and they serve a really much needed purpose. And so the tiny homes are fully equipped, and we have a Oakland Community Land Trust, which is what we will utilize for the property. And then on those properties that we deem that are qualified for residency, then we put in the infrastructure, which is the sewer, water lines, and the electrical, and then from there it's all measured out to have typically 12 by 24, 12 by 30 footprint sized homes on them. And for Opportunity Village, while they don't own them, they will have safety, security, and the purpose of Opportunity Village is to help them establish an income so that they can move on to the next vision, which is the affordable housing, my tiny home HOAs throughout all of Oakland's 7 districts. Because right now we have in the charter the ability to start these tiny homes and start making a difference for all of the Oaklanders that are struggling with house payments, with being homeless. And then with COVID right now, we're seeing a big uptick in people being displaced from their homes and apartments right now. So right now, the tiny homes communities are the best and most cost-effective solutions that we have on the horizon right now. But yet, your city leaders, meaning Mayor Libby Schaaf and your city council, don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear answers for some reason. They much rather continue this inhumane treatment of our unhoused, which are our residents. And so these are all important elements that have to be addressed. The city refuses to address these. There are answers here. I'm bringing answers. As your Oakland mayoral candidate, I implore you to talk to Libby, get in touch with your city council members, say there is an answer for this homeless crisis that's going on, and people being forced to live on the street is not necessary. We have the tools, we have the areas, we have the land, we have the plan. We just need the will. So, thank you for joining me today, folks. We'll be right back.